Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Back home in Canada, I'd been struggling to find my path until I met my mentor at a career fair. He was this brilliant chemical engineer who saw potential in me when I couldn't see it myself. He helped me get into engineering school, coached me through the tough times, and even connected me with the overseas opportunity that changed my life. He wasn't just my mentor, he was like the father figure I never had. When my own dad walked out on us when I was 12, this man stepped in and showed me what real guidance and support looked like. For 8 years, he was there for every major moment in my life. He even helped me land this position in Saudi Arabia when I was fresh out of college and desperate for experience. The job was exactly what I needed, even if it meant dealing with my supervisor, probably the most condescending person I've ever met. From day one, he made it clear he thought I was just some privileged Western kid who couldn't handle real work. Every shift with him was an exercise in patience. One morning, he berated me for being 2 minutes late, suggesting that time management wasn't a priority where I came from. When I tried to explain that the security checkpoint was backed up, he just scoffed and told me there was always an excuse with you people. That was a typical morning exchange. I learned to tune him out and focus on my work. The night shifts were actually a blessing. 12 peaceful hours without his constant criticism. But everything changed that one night. It was around 2 a.m. when my phone rang. Seeing my mom's number at that hour made my stomach drop. Through tears, she told me that my mentor had suffered a heart attack. Despite the doctor's best efforts, he hadn't made it. I couldn't even process what she was saying at first. My mentor, the man who had shaped my entire future, was gone. Just like that. No warning, no goodbye, nothing. I tried to keep it together. I was responsible for monitoring crucial systems, and there was literally no one else who could cover the shift. But I was a mess. I kept making myself stay focused on the monitors through my tears, checking and double-checking everything because I couldn't trust myself. When morning came, I was still at my station, probably looking like death warmed over. My supervisor walked in with his usual smug expression. He took one look at me and made a snide comment about how terrible I looked, joking sarcastically about whether someone had died. He said it with this sneering laugh like he'd made the cleverest joke in the world. I turned to look at him, not even caring about the tears still drying on my face. With complete deadpan delivery, I told him that my mentor back home had died, and I'd gotten the call last night. I've never seen someone's face change so fast. He went from smug to ghost white in seconds. He started stammering, trying to backtrack and apologize, but before he could form a coherent sentence, our boss walked in. She wasn't supposed to be there for hours, but news travels fast in a tight-knit industry. She came straight to me and offered a hug. I hadn't even known she knew my mentor, but she explained that they'd worked together years ago. She spoke warmly about him being one of the best engineers she'd ever known. Then she noticed my supervisor, still standing there looking like he'd seen a ghost. She demanded to know why I was still at my station, questioning why I hadn't been relieved hours ago. When my supervisor stumbled through an explanation about there being no coverage available, she was furious. She told him that he should have called in backup coverage from another facility. It was right there in the emergency protocols he was supposed to know by heart. But he'd been so busy making people feel small that he'd never bothered to learn them properly. The boss told me to go home and get some rest, assuring me they would handle everything. She also told me that when I returned, I'd be reporting to a different supervisor. When my supervisor tried to protest about his position, she curtly told him they would discuss it in her office immediately. I later found out that this incident led to a full review of his management history. Turns out I wasn't the only one he'd been treating poorly, just the one who finally exposed his incompetence. He was transferred to a non-supervisory position at a different facility within a week. When I returned to work after taking time to attend the memorial service back home, everything had changed. The new supervisor was actually interested in teaching and mentoring the night shift staff. Sometimes I think about how my mentor would have appreciated the irony. Even after he was gone, he was still helping me grow and improve my situation. I just wish I could have thanked him one last time. My husband and I had been trying to have children for 6 years. We went through multiple rounds of fertility treatments, and finally, after our third attempt at in vitro fertilization, we were blessed with twins. The pregnancy itself was difficult. I was put on bed rest for the last 2 months, but my husband was incredibly supportive throughout the whole ordeal. The only dark cloud during this time was my husband's sister. She'd been struggling with infertility herself, and instead of being happy for us, she became increasingly hostile. She would make snide comments during family gatherings about how some people don't deserve to be parents and how life isn't fair. My husband tried talking to her several times, but she wouldn't listen. Yesterday, I gave birth to our beautiful twin girls through a cesarean section. The delivery went well, but I was exhausted and still under the effects of medication. My husband was with me in the recovery room when his sister showed up unannounced. She immediately demanded to see her nieces. When my husband explained that they were in the nursery and that visiting hours were over, she became agitated. She insisted that as family, she should be allowed to hold them. When I weakly tried to suggest arranging a proper visit for tomorrow since I was very tired, she stormed out of the room. About an hour later, my husband went to get coffee, and I dozed off. I was awakened by a commotion in the hallway, shouting, running, and what sounded like multiple people arguing. A nurse rushed into my room and urgently asked if I had authorized anyone to take my babies from the nursery. My heart nearly stopped, and I tried to get up despite the pain, telling her that I absolutely hadn't authorized anyone. The nurse then explained that my sister-in-law had tried to take them. Wearing scrubs she must have brought with her to pass herself off as hospital staff. One of their nurses had caught her attempting to put the babies in a large bag she had brought along. I later learned that when she was caught, she had a complete breakdown. She screamed that the babies were rightfully hers, ranting about how I had stolen her chance at motherhood and that she would be a better mother than me. She tried to make a run for it with one of my daughters, but thankfully, hospital security managed to stop her before she could reach the elevator. The police were called immediately. When they searched her car in the parking lot, they found a prepared nursery in her trunk. Diapers, formula, clothes, everything. The police found evidence on her phone that she had been stalking me throughout my pregnancy. She had photos of me going to doctor's appointments, screenshots of my social media posts about the pregnancy, and even a calendar marking my due date. She had also been researching ways to smuggle babies out of hospitals. She is currently in custody facing multiple charges: attempted kidnapping, stalking, impersonating medical personnel, and breaking hospital protocols. My husband's parents are mortified and have promised to help with any legal proceedings. They're also paying for additional security at the hospital until we're discharged. The hospital has moved us to a different floor with enhanced security, and no one is allowed to visit without going through multiple identity checks. My daughters are safe and healthy, thank God. But I can't stop thinking about what could have happened if that nurse hadn't been so vigilant. My husband is talking about getting a restraining order, not just for me and the babies, but for himself as well. He says he can't ever trust his sister again after this. His parents are supporting our decision and are actually encouraging us to press charges to the fullest extent. The detective handling our case told us that based on the evidence they found, this wasn't a spontaneous act of desperation. She had been planning this for months. They found detailed notes about hospital shifts, security camera locations, and even the best exits to use for a quick getaway. The whole thing feels like a nightmare, but I'm so grateful for the hospital staff's quick action. The nurse who caught her has been checking on us regularly, and the hospital administration has been incredibly supportive through all of this. They're even reviewing their security protocols to prevent something like this from happening to anyone else. My husband hasn't left my side since the incident, except to check on the twins in the nursery, and even then, he goes with a security escort. We're both still in shock, but focusing on our daughters is helping us cope. They're perfect and healthy, and that's all that matters right now. I've been living in this neighborhood in Canada for the past 15 years. It's a modest house, but I've put my heart into maintaining it, especially the backyard where I love to garden during our brief summer months. My neighbors have come and gone over the years, but the woman next door has been here for about 3 years now. At first, everything was fine, but slowly she started treating the area between our properties like her personal storage unit. It started with a few gardening tools leaning against my house wall. Then came some old flower pots. Soon enough, there was a rusty bike, some construction materials, and even an old door just sitting there. I kept quiet, trying to be a good neighbor, but it was getting ridiculous. Last month, she finally decided to have her massive spruce trees trimmed. They were getting out of control, so I was actually relieved when I saw the tree service company show up. That relief didn't last long. A few days after the trimming, I went to take out my garbage and stopped dead in my tracks. There, pressed against my back fence, was a mountain of tree debris. We're talking branches bigger than my arm, enough pine needles to fill a swimming pool, all piled 6 feet high against my fence and stretching all the way to the road. It looked like someone had dropped half a forest there. I immediately texted her about the pile of tree trimmings against my fence, asking what her plans were for disposing of it. Her response was infuriating. She casually replied that she was planning to move it gradually. I texted back telling her that wouldn't work and that I needed it removed as soon as possible, emphasizing that my property wasn't a dumping ground. She brushed off my concerns, saying not to worry and that she'd take care of it when she could. 2 weeks passed, and nothing changed. The pile was still there, and I was getting more frustrated by the day. I sent another message, this time more forcefully stating that this had gone on long enough and that my property wasn't her free storage space. She had the nerve to call me unreasonable and asked where else she was supposed to put it. I shot back that it wasn't my problem. She hired the tree service, so she needed to figure it out. After that, she went silent. Meanwhile, we'd been having unusually warm weather for this time of year, which meant she had plenty of opportunities to deal with the mess. But no, she chose to ignore it completely. Today, everything changed. The temperature dropped to -20 degrees, and when I came home for lunch, I saw that pile still sitting there, now covered in snow. All I could think about was the mice that were probably making themselves at home in there, right next to my fence, probably planning their winter invasion into my house. That was the last straw. I put on my warmest coat, grabbed my work gloves, and spent my entire lunch break throwing every single branch, twig, and handful of pine needles onto her parking pad, right where she keeps her garbage bins. It was hard work, but the satisfaction of watching that last branch land on her property was worth every frozen finger. Just as I finished, I saw her car turning onto our street. I quickly went inside and watched through my window as she pulled up to her parking pad, then stopped abruptly. She got out of her car, mouth hanging open, staring at the mountain of debris I'd relocated. Her text came almost immediately, practically screaming through the phone, demanding to know what I'd done to her parking pad. I replied that I'd simply returned her property to her, pointing out that the tree trimmings had been sitting against my fence for a month, and since she wanted to move them gradually, I'd helped with the first move. She threatened to call the police, but I shut that down quickly by reminding her that I had all our text messages where she admitted to dumping yard waste on my property, plus photos of all the other items she'd been storing against my house without permission. That shut her up quickly. Within an hour, I saw her on the phone, and by evening, a junk removal service had come to clear everything away. Not just the tree trimmings, but all the random items she'd been storing against my house too. When spring comes, I'm finally going to be able to plant that garden bed I've been planning along my fence. I already have the perfect plants picked out, and there won't be a pile of rotten tree debris in my way. I've always believed in the power of community, which is why I helped create our local book club 5 years ago. What started as 6 people meeting in my living room to discuss novels has grown into a vibrant group of nearly 40 members. We meet twice a month, rotating between members' homes, and over the years, we've become more than just a book club. We're a support system for each other. Last night was our annual holiday party, and like every year, we organized a white elephant gift exchange. We made it clear that participation was completely optional. Some members are single parents or on fixed incomes, and we never want anyone to feel pressured. This year, we decided to try something new by having two price tiers, one for gifts between $25, $50, and another for $75, $100. Most people chose the lower tier, which was totally fine. Only 9 of us, including myself, opted for the higher tier. I was pretty excited when my turn came up third. There was this gorgeously wrapped package with intricate ribbon work that caught my eye. I figured someone had put real thought into it, so I chose that one. As I unwrapped it, I felt everyone's eyes on me. Inside was a basic hot chocolate gift set. You know the kind. 3 packets of cocoa, a cheap mug, and some dollar store marshmallows. I've seen these on clearance at discount stores for maybe $8. The room got awkwardly quiet. I looked around and noticed one woman, let's call her Karen, staring intently at her phone, her face red. It didn't take a genius to figure out this was her gift. Throughout the rest of the exchange, no one picked my gift, which wasn't surprising. The real deal came when Karen's turn arrived, and she walked away with a brand new Keurig coffee maker worth at least $90. During refreshments, I pulled our group coordinator aside. I quietly expressed my concerns about the hot chocolate set. She immediately knew what I was talking about and admitted that she had actually tried to discourage Karen from joining the expensive tier due to her financial difficulties. However, Karen had been adamant that she could handle it. When I mentioned not wanting to cause a scene, the coordinator suggested we keep things pleasant for the evening and address the issue later. I agreed and kept quiet for the rest of the evening, but this morning my phone exploded with messages from Karen. She sent a series of angry texts accusing me of being privileged and looking down on others. She went on about how going through a rough patch shouldn't exclude her from nice things. She accused me of not understanding what it's like to struggle and claimed I just throw money around. Her final message complained that I had humiliated her and insisted she had put thought into the gift, adding that not everyone could afford fancy coffee makers. Instead of engaging, I forwarded the messages to our coordinator. Within an hour, she responded saying she'd had a conversation with Karen, and the executive committee had decided to remove her from the group. But Karen wasn't done. She started messaging other members, claiming I was discriminating against her for being poor. She even showed up at our coordinator's house demanding to be reinstated. The final straw came when she created a social media post about our elitist book club that discriminates against low-income members. She conveniently left out the part about the 2 price tiers and how participation was optional. Several members screenshot her post and shared it with the coordinator. The coordinator called an emergency meeting where we reviewed our group's policies. We decided to implement a new rule. If someone signs up for a gift exchange tier, they must show their wrapped gift to the coordinator before the event to verify it meets the agreed-upon value. We also added guidelines about social media behavior and harassment. Karen continued her online campaign for a few days, but when other local community groups saw her behavior, they started distancing themselves from her too. I heard she's trying to start her own book club, but not many people are interested in joining after seeing how she handled this situation. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.